What up, though? Hola, mi gente. It's your host who in the neighborhood and the streets the most, J Hodge with In Your Hood, InYourHood.com. And welcome to another news segment of Hood Sites, where you already know what we're doing. Plugging you with information that you may know, but more importantly, disrupting the information that you do not know, the information that you do not have. And you already know, we have an understanding that people don't have this time to sit down and read every single thing, every bit and piece of information that comes out. And also, some people just choose not to read, choose not to seek out information and source out information. So we here for those individuals too. And that is the purpose and mission of Hood Sites, to plug you with information so you can take the information that you learn and that you receive and apply it in your daily life and in your personal life. But, like we always say, keeping you plugged in. Now, another insight I want to give before we start today's news segment is COVID-19, this pandemic, is nowhere close to being over with. And the reason why I say to tune in to the Federal Reserve and the Federal Open Market Committee and the Biden administration is to be able to have a pulse on when the economy will return back to normal and when the inflation won't affect your daily life. This is what I mean. Globally, COVID-19 has continued to spur and spread. And with that comes a lack of productivity. And a lack of productivity means a shortage. So that's why there are so many shortages. Because there's a lack of production. Because people are getting sick. The rampantness of COVID-19 is continuing to spread. It is not slowed. And now other countries that are non-wealthy countries that have those low labor costs, those countries are suffering. Those countries need vaccines. And seeing as the vaccine is something that's been prioritized in the United States, the companies that make the vaccines are global companies. So what does that mean? They serve the global market. So if the global market isn't doing well with the pandemic, then the United States is going to be heavily impacted and affected because this country is heavily dependent on what we know as international trade or the NAFTA agreement. So with that being said, pay attention to what's going on with inflation and what's going on to the shortages, because it impacts and it will impact the money that you earn, because prices are rising. They're rising, and they may not be significant enough for you as a consumer to see right now, but you have to pay attention because that's your money. And you want to understand the value of your money. And as an investor, you know what this means for us. How are we going to pivot? Are we going to be bullish? Are we going to be bearish? What are we speculating? What are we paying attention to how innovative these companies are being? The solutions that they're coming up with. The growth, not the value. Expansion of different sectors, like the marijuana sector, gaming sector, the biotechnology sector. There's many different sectors that these companies can get innovative with. And now we have the EV, electric vehicles. So it depends on where you are invested. But anyway, anyhow, whether you're an investor or a consumer, either way you impacted by inflation. Because that dollar value, it either rises or it falls. So what you used to be able to buy with $150 won't be the same if prices continue to rise. That means the value of what you can get and the money spent will continue to decline. That affects you every day. So that's what's going on. We have poor countries, and even among some of the more wealthy countries who don't have access to the parts and the materials they need to finalize a vaccine. And the American government and companies that's here domestically that produce the vaccine have those materials, have those components that they can give, but because of the ongoing dispute and the beef and the tension and the conflict between Russia, China, and the United States, COVID-19, until that is resolved, may not be, it may not be resolved for quite a while. So innovation is going to be needed. That's what's going on. And like I said, those tensions, that conflict impacts us, impacts you as a consumer and as an investor. Because that ongoing conflict between Russia, China, and the United States is why the vaccines are not being deployed to the countries that need it, why COVID-19 is not at a rate of declination, it's not declining, it's not decreasing, it's not slowing down, it's continuing at the same rapid growth. So that is news, and that's insights that we need to pay attention to. But getting to today's news segment. Today's news segment is titled Marijuana Social Equity, Seeds Planted, but Will They Grow? Continuing. Social equity has been a selling point for marijuana legalization in many states. But so far, the goals have far outstripped the realities. Continuing. Terrence Hewing, H-E-W-I-N-G. Terrence Hewing was working for a package delivery company in 2007 when police approached his cargo van in suburban Denver. He was early for a pickup, and someone out for a walk called authorities after seeing him napping in the driver's seat of his van. Officers found about a pound of marijuana inside the vehicle. That led to a couple of days of jail, thousands of dollars in legal fees, and a felony conviction for drug possession. Hewing lost his job and, because of his criminal record, for years struggled to find housing and a stable, well-paying career. Continuing. A quote from him himself, Mr. Hewing. I felt like I was in a certain box in society, he said. There's people that don't have felonies and people that do. It makes you almost feel kind of outcast. End quote. Continuing. Hewing, 39 years of age, recently became one of only a few black entrepreneurs to receive a business license in Colorado's recreational and marijuana industry. His goal is to run a company that delivers the very substance that stained his record. Continuing. His opportunity is the result of personal ambition paired with Colorado's effort to right past wrongs from the war on drugs. Continuing. Hewing will enter the market as a so-called social equity operator, licensed under a program that provides reduced fees and mentoring to encourage the growth of new businesses, especially for black people arrested or imprisoned for marijuana offenses. Social equity has been a selling point for marijuana legalization in many states. New York, which last month broadly legalized cannabis use, has set a goal of getting 50% of licenses to minorities and other social equity applicants. But so far the goals have outstripped realities, partly due to legal entanglements as states look to broaden diversity in cannabis, boardrooms, retail shops, production plants, and greenhouses. Disappointment with the slow rollout of equity programs has taken on a deeper resonance at a time when the nation is undergoing a racial reckoning brought on by cases of police brutality and punctuated last year by the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. The limited statistics available indicate business owners and investors at the top of the booming industry remain overwhelmingly white. Continuing. In Nevada, about 30% of people in the state are Latino and 10% are black. But the state's first demographic survey of the cannabis industry, released earlier this year, showed only about 2% of board members identified as black and just 7% Latino. States are making progress toward a more diverse marijuana industry, but so far the push for social equity has been plagued with a lot of delays and litigation, said Karen O'Keefe, Director of State Policies at the Marijuana Policy Project. Continuing. In some cases, aspiring social equity licensees have been locked up again, this time in predatory contracts, with profits and control largely in the hands of investors. And others, they've been overmatched in a cutthroat market dominated by international companies valued at millions and sometimes billions of dollars. Continuing. And sometimes states themselves have been slow to establish and grow programs. Voters in Washington and Colorado in 2012 made their states the first to legalize recreational marijuana, but only now are they moving toward greater social equity. Colorado's program, which took effect at the beginning of the year, is open to all races, but the state marijuana enforcement division says on its website the goal is to increase diversity, especially among owners. It also acknowledges the effects of decades of criminal enforcement of marijuana laws on communities of color. Continuing. According to a 2020 study by the American Civil Liberties Union, black people in the United States are 4 times more likely than white people to be arrested for marijuana possession despite comparable usage. The study analyzed marijuana possession arrests from 2010 to 2018. Continuing. The Colorado program is open to those who lived in the state for at least 15 years between 1980 and 2010 in an opportunity zone or an disproportionately affected by drug laws, or an area, disproportionately affected by drug laws, which is determined by education and poverty levels, unemployment rates, and the number of people who receive public assistance. The program also is open to those with a household income that below. The program is also open to those with a household income below 50% of the state's median, and those who either were or have a close family member arrested or convicted of a marijuana offense. Continuing. One provision allows new licensee holders to partner with an existing marijuana business to learn from experienced professionals. Coming 7 years after sales of recreational marijuana were legalized, it's been a long wait, said Sarah Woodson, Hewing's wife and executive director of the advocacy group, The Color of Cannabis. Continuing. Once it becomes regulated, They literally should be the first people that have an opportunity to legitimize and capitalize from that business, said Woodson, referring to people with marijuana convictions. Continuing. As many look for answers to increase minority participation in the business, a recurring question has emerged. Do equity programs do enough to help license holders who may have little, if any, business experience or access to capital needed to launch a successful company? Los Angeles, the nation's largest legal pot shop, opened for businesses in 2018. But more than 3 years later, its social equity program remains a work in progress after getting tangled in a legal fight and later undergoing a major makeover intended in part to shield inexperienced social equity licensees from shark investors. Continuing, the delays have left many potential operators and their financial backers in limbo, waiting for permission to open for business while startup costs pile up. I'm paying rent on an empty building, lamented Kika Keith, a leading Los Angeles activist and co-founder of Social Equity Owners and Workers Association. She's seeking a social equity license to open a small retail shop in the city's historically black neighborhood, Crenshaw. After 2 years of planning, an earlier partnership collapsed under delays and shifting regulations that prompted her initial investors to back out. By that time, the company had spent $350,000 on lease payments, lawyers, and other costs. Keith, who is black and grew up in South Los Angeles, has secured new financial backers, but is still waiting for a license. Continuing. Keith likens her long fight to struggles of the past, like breaking down Jim Crow laws that enforce racial segregation in the South. They continue to push us down deeper in the hole, she said. Cannabis business attorney Hillary Bricken said California's market is treacherous even for experienced operators, with dense layers of constantly shifting regulation, heavy taxes, and competition from the still booming illicit industry. Pot remains illegal federally, which can make loans and other banking services hard to find. Continue. Companies generally are out to make profits and build brands, not focus on a humanitarian mission, she said. Investors could be uneasy about entering a partnership in which they would have to surrender significant control to the equity operator, as under rules in Los Angeles. In capitalism, the dollar rules, she said. Hoping to address such concerns, Woodson's group, anchored in the historically black neighborhood of 5 Points near downtown Denver, runs a 10-week business course to help students navigate the social equity application process and to connect them with industry leaders. Michael Diaz Riviera, 35, who identifies as white, black, and Puerto Rican, recently completed the program, which teaches about business and marketing, filing taxes, and licensing and management, among other topics. Continuing. An elementary school teacher with a felony conviction for marijuana possession, Diaz Rivera sees his future in a pot delivery business, though he acknowledges he's had trouble finding investment and with little business experience worries about falling into an unfair contract. Continuing. With social equity, I've noticed that a lot of established businesses aren't as interested in that because they don't get anything out of it, he said. As for Hewing, he is bullish about his prospects despite the obstacles. We are trying to get it to where we are actually creating businesses and owners and generational wealth, he said. People can help their communities and restore the negative damage that was caused by the war on drugs. End of article. So again, today's news segment is called, once again, Marijuana Social Equity, Seeds Planted, but Will They Grow? And what we have here is, again, a cultural, moral value and principle, and also our cultural identity on display, and also cultural what I would say is a constraint. It's not just a challenge and an issue. This is a cultural constraint. And we all know that marijuana is a part of our culture, our black culture. It's a part of our culture. It is our culture. In another segment of black people in our culture is Jamaicans, who have also centered a religion around the natural herb of the earth, marijuana. And for years, for decades, marijuana has been a part of our culture as a bonding agent, as a recreational agent, and also as a mental and physical health agent. We've grown, most of the people in our culture have grown up around marijuana users, recreationally, and in cases, if we didn't know, health-wise. So for medicinal purposes. And then there's the inhumanity in the industry of marijuana, where our communities and our culture has been heavily demonized and destroyed from mass incarceration over a natural herbal plant. A plant that is rooted in our culture and that is utilized in many different ways, many different circumstances and instances, and bonding being one of them. And so, here we have a burgeoning industry that is new, with an activity that is old, and with a product that is old, but with an industry that is fresh and new and booming, and has so much wealth potential in it that our cultural power has to be flexed. So now there needs and there has to be awareness and consciousness when we go to ballots and we go to vote. Voting suppression now has to be combated, and not only that, it has to be paid attention to very closely and precisely, because this will continue to be voted upon state by state, and the inclusion and the inclusiveness will continue to be discriminative in its nature, just naturally. But our cultural power and our cultural moral values and principles and our cultural identity and our cultural constraint with marijuana presents one major grand opportunity for us to prosper off a product that we use traditionally in our culture and in our heritage And not only that, that we've received great despair and suffrage from its use and its sale. And now it's being legalized to be sold just as it always was. And our cultural power has to be flexed in assuming a great amount of that market share and representation as business owners, as suppliers, as growers, as distributors, at every level of production. There needs to be cultural power exercised, because our moral and values and principles culturally is what will allow us to break into and revolutionize an industry that we have long dominated, popularized, and founded. So now that it's moving to a legality, into a legalization, the same entrepreneurial spirit we had when it was deemed illegal is the same entrepreneurial spirit we have to employ and be empowered with as it becomes legalized. And again, cultural value, morals, and principles is what gives us our cultural challenges, constraints, and issues, which gives us the time and opportunity to come up with creative cultural solutions. And all of this is on the shoulders, in the back, in the limbs of our cultural identity. Like I always say, visit the website www.inyourhood.com. We have our television series and our daily, our not daily, but our digital show, television show, Where's J Hodge, The Journey in These Streets, streaming live 24/7 on the website. You can sign up for a free account. Very quick, take you less than 1 minute, really less than 30 seconds. You can also look at the true essence of Black history that we have on the website, get educated with that. We have global Black news, and we have local, or what I would call domestic Black news and history and stories and trailblazers that you can get educated about also. And then we also have Black businesses, of course, listed on the site. Businesses you may have not seen or heard of, but like I said, we are forever looking for more of all sorts and all industry types. Then we have our Instagram for In Your Hood, at His Excellency _ J.Hodge. You can easily follow. We have a segment going on our Instagram channel. Then our YouTube channel for In Your Hood, J space HAJJ, J Hodge. You can subscribe. And we have a segment going on our YouTube channel, along with selective episodes that are, again, readily available 24/7 for you to view and watch. And we have a new segment coming. And then we have more new content coming to the YouTube channel. But, like I always say, be conscious, be aware, be conscious. Pay attention to inflation. And I'm going to continue to say that. Pay attention to COVID-19, the shortages. Pay attention to the companies. Sign up for a free account on the website, www.inyourhood.com. And like I always end with and say, I'm going to get on y'all tomorrow.